Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your co-host Gordo Gambles, joined today by this beauty of a man here, Liam, UFC London, and in honor of that time zone change, we got an early stream for you guys. It's noon. Instead of a beer, I got my coffee. I'm ready to go. I know this guy right here has been grinding out this card, so I'm super honored to have him join me. Liam, bro, how are we doing?
I'm doing well, Gordo. It's another great day to pick fights. I think that there's a lot of good opportunities on this card. Maybe not as many as some other cards, but hey, I'm always looking. I'm always trying to dig deep and try and really consider these fights. And I have a lot of spots that I have fired on and a couple that I'm waiting to take a spot on. And man, very excited to get going. I have one play in particular that the bookie's been trying to buy me out of at increasingly desirable prices all week. So good stuff, Gordo.
We've been talking about this card for a while now. I know you know a couple spots. I know a couple spots here. I'm looking forward to talking to you about this for so long. I'm excited to either see your side, help either push me over the bridge or help me off of it. Make sure I don't do anything too stupid because you're a sharp guy. You need to be careful with this card. But appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. What's up, Gramps? Happy to have you back. The boys are indeed back in town, and you know what? It's a nice card. You mentioned it. Maybe not the best for value. It's a lot of chalky spots, a lot of chalky fights, but that's okay because we're still going to make some money. We're going to grind it out, and I'm pumped. I got a decent amount of plays. I tweeted out earlier today. This is maybe my best CLV card ever, and for that reason, I'm probably going to lose a lot of money because there's a curse with CLV. But that's okay because at least I got there. I did my job, right? So I capped them early. Very excited to see how they go, and I say we don't waste any more time. Let's get started with the very, very first fight of the night. And if you guys are aware, especially people in the Ironman with me, early start tomorrow. Make sure you have those lineups locked in, 1 p.m. EST. But anyways, get started. Muhammad Makayev 5-0, Cody Durden 12-3-1. How do you see that one going down?
Yeah, so this is a fight where I don't have any betting action. It is one of the ones that I want to tape a little bit more before I would be interested in getting involved. You know, broadly speaking, I've heard good things about Makayev for a long time, so kind of been keeping a little bit of an eye on him. Have seen a few of his fights, have seen some amateur fights as well. Um, he seems green to me a little bit. I do think that he has legit skills, but he's very young. You know, he's got a lot of seasoning in terms of fight opportunities, which is good, but I don't know how many real, opponents that could give him a ton of resistance he's had, maybe a few of them, more of them as a professional than an amateur. But I do think that he had a significant wrestling and grappling advantage in a lot of his fights, which he was able to bring to bear over time. Also a cardio advantage when those things weren't quite there. I do think he's a fit physical athlete, and that might be his saving grace in this fight. I do think Durden has some cardio concerns that are real. The guy just, whether it's cardio or pacing, he has repeatedly had incidences where his cardio drops off over the course of a fight. So he's been a guy I've been looking for opportunities to fade in the UFC. However, when I have to pay this much of a price tag to do so, I'm not as interested. I know that you've got one shout in particular. I'm eager to hear your argument. I do think that you normally come strapped with compelling arguments, but I will just say, it's a division with a pretty low finish rate. Cody Durden, even in a couple of fights where he's flagged and gassed, has been able to get on top of people and wrestle them. I think that's going to be harder to do with somebody like Makayev, who's got better grappling chops overall. But the wrestling of Cody Durden is nothing to sleep on. He did get submitted by Jimmy Flick in that fight, but he was throwing him around and picking him up all over the place. I do think he's a strong guy. I think he's a physical wrestler. And I think in the first 5 minutes, he might be able to get 2 takedowns, throw this kid around a little bit, control him. I just think that he might spend himself in doing so, get taken over in those last 2 rounds. And then, I can kind of see Makayev round 3 or decision as a play on this fight. Potentially just because if Durden slows down, if he gives away that second and third round, if he gives away positions later in the fight, Makayev might be able to make him pay. But I do also think UFC jitters are real, man. I've just seen so many fighters that are good, talented fighters lose this first fight coming into the octagon. And obviously the UFC is trying to give him a setup. It's a home match, all these kind of things working in his favor. But that's also, again, a lot of pressure. And a lot of people can deal with that sort of pressure. He seems like the kind of kid that can, but he's saying a lot of stupid shit. And when I hear that, that does strike me as a little immature. It's all about promotion. It's all about the story. Do I understand why you say I'm the next John Jones? I'm the next that? Yeah, I get it. But it is also, for me, a little bit of that hasn't been taught a lesson yet kind of mentality that, I don't know that Cody Durden's the guy who's going to do it. That's why I didn't put betting action down on the Cody Durden side. But there will be a fade coming on the Makayev side because he's a young guy. I don't know how physically developed he is relative to some of his peers. And I think that that's going to get exposed, if not in this fight, down the road. And I do think early in this fight, people that laid the number on his money line might start pooping their pants if he's getting taken down. But I also think that, he is likely to have the better cardio here. But again, just a concern for debuting fighters is like, I've seen underperformance in cardio as a result of nervous energy. And this kid's talked a gang of shit. I'm going to get on top of him. I'm going to finish him. I'm going to do all these things. That just builds all this stuff that for me is like, I'm going to keep my hands off this fight in all likelihood.
Hey, in mad respects to that, I definitely see where you're coming from. I don't think I played too much into that narrative as well. A lot of people are confident and are able to back it up. Others aren't. I think there's a fine line between it, and we're able to see him here today. This is a fight where you're able to really see what kind of fighter we're getting Mccann. Because like you said, he's young, bro. He's like our age, man. He's coming in here who won't be the one to exploit him in that region, I think. I think if it goes skill for skill, should Makayev be a minus 350, minus 400 fighter? No, but what does Durden do better than Makayev, in my opinion? Other than having that experience, nothing really yells Durden's going to win this fight to me. I think that cardio-wise, Makayev hasn't beat. Athleticism and youth-wise, I think got him beat. Wrestling, I know he's green and Durden has a decent game, but I also got to take Makayev there as well. And I know you're talking about the jitters. I like confidence. I'm one who thrives off confidence. So if I was fighting, I'd talk trash as well. I think that's sometimes a good thing. Yes, confidence and cardio dumps are a thing, but I'll look past that. We'll talk about that later. I just think Makayev is a guy with a really good skill set, and despite him being green, I think he's still learning and growing. He wants it. He's hungry. He's facing a guy in Durden who has been exploited, has had some holes in his game, and I think Makayev is going to be one of those guys to find another one. He gasses out, and Makayev, I think, is just going to be able to keep with him, push a pace, and finish him later rounds. I think Tim killed it right here. I also see Graham saying a round 3 as well. I will be sprinkling some round 3 props on Makayev because that's where I do think it happens. Yes, it's going to be a competitive fight. I'm not going running to the counter to parlay these pieces here, but I think that when it comes to a young guy who wants those finishes, who wants that UFC experience, Makayev, despite how tired Durden is, he's not going to give up. He's going to keep pushing that pace. He wants that finish. So if he's still there and Durden's declining, that finish definitely live. I'll be sprinkling some round 3. I'm calling a sub here. I know that Durden has been subbed in a lot of his losses. It's not like he's a bad grappler, but it is a hole in his game. But you killed it right off the bat. Is we haven't seen enough from Makayev to lay that parlay piece. There's a lot of parlay pieces on this card. He's not one of them. He is a prop for me. I'm taking his round 3. I'm taking his side of the distance. I think he gets it done. I don't have access to round 3 or decision books. I don't think that's a bad bet either. But I am taking him to win round 3. I think it gets him out of there. Hopefully that cardio dump's a thing. Hopefully you're wrong, which you usually aren't, with that confidence being too much. But I just think it's going to be a good fight. I'm going to sit back. It starts off the night. I think he's hungry for a win. I think he goes out there and gets it. Round 3, that's what I'm taking right here, but it's not my most confident bet on the card. But I do think he shows some decent promise. And I think it's going to be fun. That's all you want to see, right? Is a fun UFC fight to start it off, right? Exactly. All right. I say don't waste too much time on that one. I am picking Makayev. I do think he's got a sneaky DraftKings side as well, just because a lot of people are thinking like you do. He's young, 5-0. And at that top price range, you have a lot of better favorites. But I think he's sneaky because if this fight gets extended, if there's takedowns, if there's grappling, if there's control time, he is a sneaky option because I do also see him finishing. So there you go. There's your DraftKings tidbit for you there, bud. But we'll keep her going. Next fight up, Elise Reed, 4-1. Corey Mckenna, 6-1. And this is one where I needed your help. You either push me off the ledge or help bring me back in because the line's looking a little bit wide, Liam. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I initially felt the same way, right? So I started looking at this fight. I was like, man, this is a wide line on Corey Mckenna. I started calling to mind what I had in mind from her fighting career, right? I was thinking of her UFC exposure. Dana White Contender Series has a close fight with Vanessa Demopoulos, gets on top in all the rounds, but really, Vanessa likes to work from her back. She tried to do so in that spot. When they were on the feet, she landed some decent strikes, but she's got a small frame. She's not the most comfortable striker. All those things are true about her. And when you look at Elise Reed, it jumps off the paper. She's a very comfortable striker relative to Mckenna. She's a little bit older. She's got just a little bit more experience. She obviously has some kind of striking background. You can see it when she's fighting. She's much more comfortable at distance than she is in the clinch. That's where she got exploited by Jasmine Jasudavicius in a regional fight that, comes pretty close to a robbery. I did note that it was a close round in my own notes for round one, but, there's close rounds that don't have a clear winner, and then there's close rounds that do. Close rounds with 2 takedowns and, some damage on top. It's like, yeah, I'd probably give it to that girl, 8 out of 10 times or something like that. So she just got done wrong a little bit there. And that's why, Elise Reed shows a little bit better record than she has. When you go through and watch, there's a lot of concerning footage on Elise Reed, just frankly. She gets taken down quite easily in many of her fights. She doesn't show often a very competent ground game. I think what happens is she's got, pretty good physical fitness for the regional level, and she's able to outlast some women where she's put in bad positions, but, she pulls off the armbar from guard, or she does something like that where she's in a bad spot, but she's able to work harder than them for longer, and she puts them out. Corey Mckenna, on the other hand, I've seen this girl battle through a lot of adversity. I've seen her in bad positions and work her way back out. And she's been doing this all at a very young age. At 19 years of age, she's out there putting herself on the line. And she's also had pretty tough stylistic matchups. One of the things the UFC will do is they'll see, okay, what are you kind of good at? And then look for other prospects that are also good at that skill. They'll start putting hammer on hammer and try and figure out, who are we going with? Who are we building? And I think that they have decided they're going to try and build this Corey Mckenna girl to an extent. And the reason I say that is because I look at Corey Mckenna and she gets the win over Kay Hansen, right? Kay Hansen then is going different weight classes and stuff, moving up. So she's taking on bigger girls. This is a girl on the other side, Elise Reed, who's fought at 105 pounds. And many of her bouts, amateur bouts, things like that, she was getting side headlocked at 105 pounds and thrown every which way but loose. So when I see that, I see somebody like Corey Mckenna, who's pretty relentless in the grappling, who has had her back taken in the UFC by Kay Hansen, who's a little dangerous from that position, survived it, got on top, worked her way back into the fight. She just knows how to win rounds and minutes. I think that that's important. I think on top of that, I like her mindset for this fight. I listened to her interview. She's been making improvements. She's had time away. She's been using it, investing in herself in the gym. She trains with a pretty decent crop of UFC fighters. She's not out of her depth in that regard. I think that Corey Mckenna is ready for prime time. And I think she's going to finish this girl, to be honest with you. I think she's going to get on top. I think she's going to take her down. I think she's going to work through the guard. What I saw is that, Sijara Eubanks easily passed guard, went to every position she wanted. So I was like, man, maybe this is just because Sijara is a black belt. Maybe that's the reason. Nah, man. I went back and I watched. There's other lower level fighters that are taking her down, passing her guard, moving through positions. Concerning elements. She does have some regard ability. I don't think she's a complete bum on her back or something. I just think that she is used to having a pace, cardio, and will advantage over her opponents. I don't think she's going to have that. I think that Corey Mckenna is probably going to take her down and bury her. And the real problem for Elise Reed is her best game is when she's getting off with straight punches and also with her round kicks, with her teeps up the middle, with front kicks. And if she's kicking nonstop in this fight, Corey Mckenna is going to grab her legs and take her down. One of the skills that you see on tape from Corey Mckenna is an ability to catch kicks, and she's not predictable in the sense that she'll catch a kick and return with a 1-2 if you don't, keep your hands up. And if you do keep your hands up, she will fire off the double leg and try and take you down with that instead. So I actually think she's got a more competent MMA game, a little bit better process for winning rounds and minutes. So I understand the steam on the money line. I hit minus 240 before it started to run. And I also am on the inside the distance here. I'm on the sub in the later rounds as well. So yeah, basically I think that Corey Mckenna is just a much better grappler than her opponent. I think that she is a much better wrestler than her opponent. I think she's going to be able to dictate where the fight takes place. I'm going to back Corey Mckenna for those reasons.
Fair play. And I mentioned in the DraftKings video that should be up soon. Busy, haven't posted it yet. But I think that I thought originally that Elise Reed could be a safer floor because you have a lot of fighters who are in that lower range who will probably get finished early, who don't have that same floor as other fighters. I thought this fight was going to go a bit longer. I actually saw I predicted Mckenna decision, but if you see her being finished, you think that Mckenna could be a sneaky little DraftKings play up top?
Yeah, I am on McKenna for DraftKings.
Perfect. Hey, there you go. That's definitely going to be a good contrarian line up top because there's so many guys who are up there who are going to finish. I like that contrarian play. I think she does well, and I think she's relatively low owned.
Takedowns, good for DraftKings. Potential to finish, good for DraftKings. Control time, good for DraftKings. I think she's probably going to rack up all three. I'm expecting second or third round sub. So I think she could score very high. And I do think for the reason you mentioned, that's why she's a core play for me on DraftKings. She's not going to be high owned, I don't believe. So yeah, I'm not a DraftKings genius. Maybe I go down swinging with my girl, Corey Mckenna, but yeah, I like this spot. And I think she has a good potential to overperform expectations.
And there you go. You helped me down because I was thinking about it because the line is wide. And on first look, before you do your tape, you think, should Corey Mckenna be a minus 300, minus some to whatever against anybody? And you do the tape on Reed first, which is unfortunately what I did. And you think, okay, this stays on the feet for a long time. You're going to have the advantage for Reed. And I think she'll be able to close her line. But there is just such a big gap. And like you said it perfectly, Sijara Eubank passed her guard like butter, something you'd say, right? So it was something that was pretty concerning to see on tape. And whereas I do think if it stays up for 15 minutes, sure, Reed's gonna have a good chance. And that's what sometimes you want to see if she's able to fend off those takedowns. But McKenna's relentless, and I like her fight IQ. So that helps me. I'm not going to have a bet on either side because I was leaning the value play on Reed, but we're talking about this all the time. I don't like to bet on fighters I don't see winning, so that's the only reason I haven't placed it so far. I lined it a bit closer, but if you're seeing a finish, I really respect that. I will be cheering for McKenna for you. Maybe I'll tail Tim and you on that subline because we like some good juice around here, but no official play for me. I'm going to pass on that one, and I'm just going to hope for a good fight. And we'll move on to the next one there. Next one up. This is one I want to talk about. All right. Jack Shore, 15-0. Two more Valiev, 18-2. And I said at the start of the show, plus CLV. It's a curse. And we had this fight where I texted you last week. What was it? Last Thursday. And I go, hey, should Jack Shore be plus 150 right now? And he's not anymore. Let's just say that. Jack Shore is an undefeated fighter, very, very good prospect. I've been backing him in all of his UFC wins. I'm very happy with that. And he's got great fight IQ. The problem is he's facing a guy here, Timur Valiev, who has an insane skill set on his own end. I think this is going to be a very, very competitive fight coming down to the wire. I wouldn't mind seeing what Tim's thoughts are on the split decision line or something like that, something with the broad, big props line. But I do have some more money on Jack Shore. I was able to lock it up at plus 150 when me and Liam talked about it. And I'm very happy with that. Is it cursed now because I got so much of an advantage? Probably. Timur Valiev's probably going to win. But I think this would be a very, very good fight. Liam, how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I agree with you that this should be a great fight. And, one of the factors that you just have to discuss outright is the fact that we're in Britain and they are some cheaters. Like I say this with respect, but like the British Board of Boxing Control is not reliable at all to regulate combat sports. Ask Jack Catterall, the guy got robbed, highway robbery, just blindly robbed in front of his face, And so I keep that in the back of my head anytime I'm looking at these fights, right? Because you have a fight here between two guys more often than not probably going to see the scorecards at the UFC level. They're both talented guys. They both have some upside. A lot of their fights have gone to decision. And when you look at potential paths to finish, Valiev, a little bit of a cardio concern at times. He has been able to go 15 minutes, was able to grapple for 15 minutes as well, mixing it in the Martin Day fight. So he's gone to decision in the UFC, proven he could do that. But he also slowed down in the Trevin Jones fight, probably from a lack of, discipline management of his cardio. It wasn't really a fact that he's not an athlete or something. He just spammed a ton of volume, thought he had the finish, couldn't get it, found himself wanting. So the question here is he able to do enough core competent work to convince the judges and or knock out Jack Shore? And so for me, that's a tough one. I do think that he is like, this is a kind of fight where I could see robbery being called all over the place for sure. No matter who wins it, if Jack doesn't get it, I think the crowd's going to boo like crazy, whether he was supposed to win or not. It's one of those kind of fights. And Jack has the style where he's going to make this greasy. He's going to try and push this guy in the clinch. He's going to try and grab a hold of him around the back and lock onto a wrist. He's got some tricks. He's not a bad fighter, but he is also taking a big step up in competition. That's what I'd think. And so, man, it's just it's a lot to ask. I do like Jack Shore. I had a massive investment in him last time out, and I just thought that in that fight, he left a little bit of a door open for that guy who's not very good, and maybe it's just fighting to the level of competition. Maybe it's something like that. Hunter Azure as well, a guy that I don't think is a bad fighter. I did bet Jack Shore in that one as well, but again, it's like Azure's no longer with the company. Still a decent fighter. He still has some potential to win fights, but basically gave away some rounds and minutes. Got knocked out brutally by Brian Kelleher, which not a lot of people can say that. So, man, it's just it's interesting. I think this is a fun and compelling fight, but I don't have much confidence to lay either one of these guys at slight chalk, which they both are right now. I will say though, if Valiev hits dog money, I would start to get just a touch intrigued because of the step up in competition. However, I think that he's probably going to get jobbed out here in England. So Jack Shore is probably going to win a close decision.
Now, his last fight, I was going to talk about it myself too. Didn't he have a torn bicep or something his last time? And he said he couldn't really go for those takedowns and he was playing a bit scared, or I think I remember seeing that.
He did. But then my question is like, all right, how's everything feeling? Are we good this week? Because the fighter's never going to tell you, yeah, and the worst part of it all is my biceps torn again this camp.
Yeah, I think that if he was fighting Timur Valiev, he would want to be at 100%. I think that
1,000%. Yeah.
No disrespect
to foolish not to.
Yeah, no disrespect to his last opponent, but he got a short notice replacement. He's like, I can take this win even with a torn bicep. So he went for it. I think he's at full capacity here, and I like him for that. I was just about to ask Tim what that split decision line is because I think it goes to the judges and at plus 800. That'll be funny to see. But no, I'm just going to stick with my money line. I'll do what Frank says. I'll take me to the shore because Jack Shore's a guy I've been riding this whole time. And no, maybe I shouldn't say that. But he's a guy I've been with this whole time, and I've been a true fan of his work. And the best thing about him, I think, is his fight IQ. He's a well-rounded fighter, and he knows what he has to do to win these fights. Even on a torn bicep, he knew what he had to do to beat his opponent last time out, and I like that. He has the ability to keep it up in the clinch. He has the ability to wear on Valiev's gas tank. If it goes to the ground, he has the ability to get back up, to play off his back, to reverse transitions. And on the feet, he's got those straight punches, great combinations. I just like the guy in general. Is Timur Valiev a walkover? No way. Timur Valiev is a great fighter. Would I bet this line as much as I did at evens? No, I bet it because I got Jack Shore at plus 150, and that was a bit absurd. The way it is now, sure, I'd still take maybe a 1-unit shot on Jack Shore at plus 100, but it's a close fight. None of these fighters are going to win distinctively. I think it's going to be a really close, grimy decision. And of course, I'm going to be a fan of the judges on my side, but at that, Timur Valiev is no pushover. This is going to be a very, very close fight, and I warn people betting it because of this line movement too. Jack Shore's a fan favorite, or maybe that's the reason he's getting some money. It's kind of the reason he grabbed my eye at plus 150. But I think it's to be an absolutely beautiful fight. I can't wait to sit back and enjoy. Hopefully, it ends up good on my side. I'll take that split decision, I'll take that majority decision. I'll take a knockout for Jack Shore. I don't care what it is. I'm cheering for Jack Shore this week. 2 units plus 150. Love that bet. Of course, like the theme of the video has been, plus CLB is going to ruin it for me. But I'm looking forward to that one. That's probably my most intriguing fight of the night just because I love both fighters. I can't believe it's so far down on the card because it is going to be a great scrap. All right, let's keep her rolling. Next up, Nikita Kriloff, 27-8. Paul Craig, the legend himself, 15-4-1. I love Paul Craig, man. Doing his tape is so funny. Going over, watching that Ankalaev come back, watching him break Jamal Hill's arm and then just hit him in the face. If anybody had a submission bet on that one, I feel so bad for you because I did think Hill. Did you have one that day? I thought Hill tapped, didn't he?
I thought Hill tapped. He broke his arm. The ref's a jackass. I'm brutalized by that fight to this day. To this day.
Anyways, if this goes to the ground like we saw in that Hill fight, this is like Paul Craig has such an arsenal. Like he is such a good fighter and he's so entertaining and he's one of the ones who falls under the killer to be killed price tag. And he has a killer to be killed mentality. And that's why I have some money on the fight as a good decision. And as a fan of Paul Craig's work, I'm going to take him submission line as well. Why don't you break this one down and then we can talk about some numbers after.
Yeah, so basically this is the fight that's kind of dividing the community, it would seem, right? I do think that Paul Craig is a good fighter. I don't think that Paul Craig gets very much love for the fact that he's made constant improvements. not only to his fighting skills, but to his strength and conditioning. And you can see that. It's evident in his fights. It's evident in his weigh-ins. The guy used to just come in looking a little bit more schlubby, a little bit more of an entertainer. And, in terms of fight doesn't go the distance, I loved everything about Paul Craig's interview this week. He's like, I'm going to try and finish this guy in the first round. He's like, that's the only way there is to fight. The way I believe in fighting is you come forward, you try and finish the guy in the first round because that's what fans want to see. I'm going to be an entertainer and I want to get my name known. And he's like, I'm pissed that I didn't build on that Jamal Hill win. I agree with him. Paul Craig is a great fighter and gets these like nice, credible wins, then disappears for a long time. And I think that this is a tricky matchup, right? Because you have in the one hand Nikita Kriloff, who early in a fight, he can kind of take it a couple different ways. He's a little bit loosey-goosey. He's a little bit aloof. Oftentimes he ends up shooting takedowns, but there's fights where he'll operate at range and kick the shit out of somebody. I talked a couple times this fight week, I should say, about the Ed Herman knockout and how it's just a really devastating use of kicks, throwing to all different positions, legs, head, and body, and just caught Herman looking, trying to search for it with his hands and got him out of position, hit him really bad, folded him face down. Fight doesn't go the distance. I bet on this fight for sure. I thought that was a great look. Both these guys have a path to finish. And then Paul Craig by sub at plus 450. He's just a great submission fighter. And I do think it's not going to be easy here. But Nikita Kriloff was getting taken down by Johnny Walker, for Christ's sakes. Like he almost had to flat back himself from a Johnny Walker guillotine attempt. Like the guy is just not the world's best grappler. He's not a bad grappler. He is pretty good at wrestling when fresh. He took down Valiev and was doing a pretty decent job riding the ankle along the cage. But I've heard a lot of takes about Paul Craig's cardio this week and not as many takes about the Kriloff cardio, which is a concern area. He almost lost the second round to Johnny Walker, getting reversed in position. And, Johnny Walker's not a good grappler, right? Like he's not a very competent grappler. And we've never really seen Johnny Walker otherwise, be able to pull off moves like that. Plus, Johnny Walker looked like he was completely spent at the 4-minute mark of that fight, and yet he was able to hang around for the full 15 minutes. And he was going for armbar attempts in the 14-minute mark of that fight that were completely horrible. But Paul Craig's won't be. We've seen the guy can go for 15 minutes in fights where he's losing. He can pull out a submission from his butt late in the fight. Like the guy's just a tricky fighter. So yeah, not laying the wood against somebody like Paul Craig this weekend. Though I do think if Kriloff wins, he could look hindsight like he's minus 800. If he just stands there, kickboxes Paul Craig, they never grapple and he knocks him out. I do think that's possible. But Paul Craig's also a pretty durable guy, tough guy. He's going to run forward. He's going to try and make offense happen. He's just a little bit sketchy. Paul Craig's not the kind of guy you want to be laying huge favorite numbers by, even if he's got bad opponents, because he could lose to anybody. But he could beat anybody too. And he's one of those guys. I like Paul Craig. I think he's going to submit this guy. But I do think that if he doesn't, he's going to look like a hindsight big underdog. So I'm not playing the money line here on Paul Craig unless it continues to inflate a little bit. I'd like to see a plus 175 or above to get involved on the Craig money line. But yeah, I will be taking some Craig sub here. Fight doesn't go the distance. It's a good look. Yeah, I like those. But I've also heard the take that they could end up, kickboxing on the outside and stuff for 15 minutes. I just don't think that Paul Craig's going to let that happen. Like, I think one way or the other, Paul Craig's going to commit himself to getting inside here. Somebody is probably going to get submitted. So yeah, that's the other thing I would potentially look at is I don't know what the price is. Fight ends by sub, something that could definitely happen. Kriloff is a willing grappler. He will more likely be in the top position in these exchanges. So it's always something to consider. Paul Craig's not above getting submitted, but I do think he's the better grappler. And I think that if Kriloff's smart, he keeps the fight upright, but there's no evidence for me to say that Kriloff is smart. So,
hey, I love the breakdown, man. It's one of these fights where you have an entertainer in Paul Craig. He is an entertainer. You killed it the way you broke it down. That's what type of fighter I love betting on, because he's going to go out there. He's going to do whatever he can to get that finish. And in doing so, you may put yourself in a dangerous position. I've seen the same takes. Kickboxing for a while. I don't see that happening. I'm with Tim. If he kickboxes for a while, Kriloff is going to be able to win a decision. Paul Craig's smarter than that. He knows where he wants his fight. He is a very, very capable grappler, and that arsenal is huge. Now, we talked about this. I told you, you texted me a couple things. I said, hey, I do not have an official bet on Paul Craig sub. That was until, shout out to Baby Yoda Bets on Twitter. Someone let me know that there was a Paul Craig plus 550 line out there, and I snagged that up. The indication on that is just completely out of this world. Paul Craig's major path to victory here is a submission, in my opinion. And getting me at plus 550, that's a great line, in my opinion. That was on the Poker Stars Sportsbook. Didn't know that was a thing either. So shout out to him for telling me that. Let's get back to breaking down this fight. You said it perfectly. Kriloff's a guy who's got good power on the feet, but he's no submission ace either. He's struggled in some of these positions, and against a guy in Paul Craig, it's dangerous because he is a guy who can tap anybody. Just ask Ankalaev, ask Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill's rising to the top right now, and hey, Paul Craig is I don't want to say a dominant win, but he's got a pretty good win over him there. So I love his style. I think that he is a very, very entertaining guy. If you are scared of him not being able to get anything done, fight doesn't go to decision. Tim mentioned it. Phineas said it. Yes, my friend?
I just wanted to make this point too. I have this feeling that people are talking about it like Paul Craig is going to be scared of this guy or something. Like Paul Craig has fought murderers row, and whether it's intelligent or not, he will even come forward doing completely ridiculous shit. Like the guy is stupid aggressive, dumb confident. I love Paul Craig. I'll never stop loving Paul Craig. He's the GOAT. So if Paul Craig loses here, he'll still be my boy, as Chris Weidman's father might say. But I think that Paul Craig really is just like a guy I'm never going to not root for in the UFC. The Ukraine angle is something we didn't mention as well. That's the other problem is what if we get a greasy decision? Why am I not so intrigued to play Paul Craig on the money line? It's not something that you overtly consider, but Paul Craig should be the hometown guy here. He should be the guy who's getting a little bit of that love and respect and a little bit of that nudge on his side if it's a close decision, but it actually could go the other way. We know how those sympathy judging calls can go sometimes. So it's just something I wanted to put in the air before we move to the next fight.
Yeah, I don't think it goes there. I think it ends pretty early, but I do see where you're coming from, and I hope it does.
I agree. 35% of the time or 20% of the time or whatever it is, we got to just be weary of them judges, man.
Exactly. I do have a bet on this fight not going to the distance. I also have a bet on, like I mentioned, the Paul Craig by submission plus 550. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really fun fight. Paul Craig fights are always really fun. He brings a pace. He's an entertainer. I think it's going to be a super, super fun fight to watch. Am I running to a bet any money line on either side? No, I want violence here, and that's what I'm going to take. I think the opening line was, if you wanted to bet on the Kriloff side, didn't it open at like plus 150 for Nikita Kriloff? That's insane. If you grab that, pretty good. With that being said, I'm not taking money line side here. I'm cheering for Paul Craig. I think he's also a very, very good GPP option on DraftKings because killer to be killed fighter. If he wins, he's going to score very, very high and at I think 7.5K price tag. It's a very good look as well. I'm cheering for him. I want to cash those sub tickets. I hope you do with me as well, Liam. That's going to be a fun one. All right, let's move it on. Next fight up on the card, Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Sergey Pavlovich. Oh, two hard names. Shamil is 20-6. Sergey is 14-1. That's easier to say their first names. This is going to be a fun one. Pavlovich hasn't fought in a while, but he is a pretty big favorite. Shamil coming off that knockout, almost a 2 knockouts on that same fight. It's going to be fun. I do not have the strongest read on this one. I do not have a bet on this one, if I'm honest. So I'll let you take this one over. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the card, I'm always looking for, my favorite betting opportunities. I didn't see a betting opportunity here. I think a lot of people lost money on Shamil last time out in that Dawkins fight. Tried to warn you guys. I told everybody, play Dawkins round 1. They robbed me. That was highway robbery. I told everybody play Dawkins round 1 and 2. So that saved our ass on the other end, right? Because I thought Dawkins clearly knocked him out in the first round. The fight could have easily been stopped. They let him continue. Okay. Just sent out to slaughter. He gets finished there brutally. And, he's making a pretty quick turn here. It's like 6 months. But how much time can he spend away? He's an older guy. He really, he's got to, it's like shit or get off the pot time for Shamil Abdurakhimov. And at 40 years of age, probably not going to make a run. So you look at Sergey Pavlovich on the other end. He's clearly the side in terms of the UFC's build, right? He comes from the Eagles MMA affiliation, lost to Alistair Overeem, but, not something that I'm really taking too much stock in. That was Alistair Overeem when he was still winning fights in the UFC. And really, he got taken down, smashed to bits in that fight, which it could happen here. But I really don't expect Shamil is going to be able to have that same kind of success in the early going. I do think Pavlovich early in this fight is going to look like the favorite, but he doesn't have a very reliable gas tank. He's got very limited experience going to decision. You just look through his record. It's kind of ridiculous. The guy's got a lot of really quick knockouts. So I think he's going to knock out Shamil. I think that's like the highest percentage outcome of this fight. But I don't think there's virtually any betting value on this fight, because the problem is, the fight doesn't go the decision is like way juiced out. And I do think it hits, in either direction. But again, it's just like, where am I going to find my edge? Where am I going to get like passionate about playing this? I think only Shamil props are kind of interesting. I've heard some people on the Shamil decision. I would think Shamil KO makes more sense. I think if he does get on top of this guy, he's probably just going to pound him out of there eventually. Like if he's getting takedowns, I think he's got the better gas, so he'll probably just be able to find a finish by being relentless. But maybe not. Maybe he ends up riding it out to a decision. But yeah, I just think that this is a pass. This is a pass fight. There's a lot of fights on the card, 12 fights. This is a pass fight for me.
Pass fight indeed. And some of these props are unbettable. Am I taking the juice fight to go decision? No, I think that there's better spots there. If I'm playing Pavlovich, probably play him by knockout, and like he says there, minus 200 KO. Am I taking his money line at minus 350? No. What am I stuck with? Shamil? Do I want Shamil? Not really. So I'm going to sit back. I think if I want to play a Hail Mary, maybe I'll throw some Pavlovich round one, because that's a very likely outcome in my opinion. But it's not something I'm running to bet, and I don't think we waste any more time on that one. I think that's going to be a fun fight. I'm hoping for some entertaining. Hoping to see some big bodies flying, conscious or not. But I think it's just going to be – it's one you can't really bet as much. And I respect that we're on the same side of that one, because this next one is one I need you to talk to you about, bro. This is one I've been going back and forth all week. Mike Grundy, 12-3. Mach 1 Amirkhani, 16-7. Okay, this is the one I'm so far on the ledge, and I've been waiting all week, and the money just keeps coming in on Grundy. I bet Grundy last time against Pinata, broke my heart. By the way, Grundy should not have won a round on any scorecard, or sorry, won the fight on any scorecard. That was an awful scorecard. That being said, stays in kind of Amirkhani, and I think it's a pretty simple fight. Amirkhani has a very good ground game, but not that good durability or cardio. I think that Grundy has very good wrestling, but sometimes he's not the best fighter in terms of, let's say, setting up his shots or winning minutes on the feet. So it's easy. You have the fighter with the better ground game. I'm going to say if it stands on the feet for all 15 minutes, I'm probably going to take Mach 1. But power-wise, durability, and wrestling, you got to give to Grundy. I just think that Amirkhani should not be plus 160 here, and I'm tempted to bet him. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, man. I'm a little surprised by this line, but it's, again, one of the fights that I want to do a little bit more legwork before I have a strong opinion. When I look at the fight, Grundy, I don't know how good Grundy is. I think that there's some there's some weird elements to his game, right? He's like a big, heavy swinger, not always the most technicality behind his strikes, but power, commitment, he does throw with some intention. Mach 1 Amirkhani doesn't have the best striking at all, but he does have fairly competent boxing when he's fresh. It's not bad. I will, just call people back to that Edson Barboza fight where he was having some competitive minutes. He was just getting outboxed by Edson, but really didn't, get beat up too bad there until the fight got late. And really for Mach 1, he doesn't have good cardio. He doesn't really have the gas to go the full 15, but neither does Grundy. I think Grundy probably has slightly better cardio than Mach 1, but I don't think that he's like some marathon runner. They both kind of muscular bound guys. I think that what's interesting is Mach 1, a lot of his problem has been energy management, right? You look at that Shane Burgos fight, and it was so clear that he's the much better grappler, like much better wrestler, but everything was relying on power. Everything was relying on muscle. And so I knew at the 4 minute mark of that first round that Shane Burgos was going to win inside the distance, because Mccann was just fighting at a pace that's simply unsustainable, right? So if he tries to do that with Grundy here, he's going to lose the fight. But if he's able to keep the fight at like a tepid pace, keep Grundy off him, use a little bit of striking, this is again greasy hometown decision territory for sure. But if he's able to tire out Grundy first, like if Grundy's the first one to get tired, he's getting Mccann conded. The guy does have a good like front choke series, and he's reliable to go for it. If you take shitty shots from the outside, he's going to try and lock you up. So, yeah, I think Grundy probably gets on top of him eventually. Mccann, he looks older and older each time he shows up to these fights. Like, I wonder how much he's training, how much he's partying, things like that. But broadly speaking, yeah, it's just a fight that, again, it wasn't a fight that stood out to me as like, I need to get involved. I need to start betting this. It would almost be my fear that we're trapped by the number, where Amirkhani becomes tempting because he's a big plus number. I have bet him a few times and gotten burnt. But the other thing we need to call back to is like the guy looked like a hindsight favorite against Lerone Murphy in the first round until he got instantly nuked in the second round. So, yeah, that cost me a bunch of dollars, but it wasn't like I walked away feeling like I had no read on the fight. Mcann's a great grappler early. That was kind of a weird outcome too. It's like, how good was his cardio going to fare in that fight? We actually don't know. Looked like he was fighting a little bit more of a sustainable pace. I don't know. So I think Mcann's fighting with his back up against the wall. He's fighting for his job here. Grundy too. So, yeah, kind of hard to step in front of either of these guys. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Grundy. That's something I always look at as like a potential reason for why a favorite could collapse. A lot of personal ties to this fight, as you, I'm sure, are aware. But, yeah, just like a lot of things that make me say, I'll pass. Everybody else, you guys can take that. Minus 160, minus 170, all those numbers, I'll pass on all that.
Yeah, it's not a very interesting fight. And if you give me the evens, I'm probably going to take Grundy. I know Mcann's got his holes in his game. Tim pointing out the KO lines there, and shout out to him and Narco saying they're going to have their Lambos play later, so check out that video. I know I will for sure. I think the one line I really wanted to take interest in was maybe the fight doesn't go. And the only reason I'm even talking about it is because I think that plus 155 is maybe a bit too wide. And I haven't played this at all yet. I'm just throwing out numbers here. Just because Amirkhani is a guy who does gas out, who does not have good cardio. And even though I know Marco was saying his chin's pretty good, he has been nuked. And the we're not going to count that knee last time because Grundy doesn't throw many knees, but Grundy does have decent power. And I do think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Grundy does get that knockout. On the other side, it's not like Grundy's some cardio machine. And you've mentioned it yourself, and Amirkhani does have that good front headlock choke. He's good ground game in general. So I do think that maybe this fight could finish one way or the other, whether it's a cardio dump, whether it's an Amirkhani sub early when he's fresh, or whether it's Grundy knocking him out cold when Mccann does tire out eventually. It's just one that I don't know how much action I want. I told Phoenix this week that if I got to plus 175, I would play Mccann because I do think that line is too wide. But you're right. It's not something I'm just going to run to play because it's not that appealing. It's an entertaining fight. It's a good one, but I don't have a solid read on each side. Amirkhani is a guy who doesn't have that paper style that we can just know exactly what he's going to do. He's a fighter who has deficiencies in his game, and that does affect his performance sometimes. I don't know if I can trust him as much as I can other fighters. So with that being said, you helped me a bit. You helped me take me down, but I still don't know. I don't know if I'm going to play this one at all. I think it's gonna be a fun one to watch. I maybe I'll play some violence here just to hope the night goes by faster, but no official plays from me yet. I am cheering for Mccann. I do think he's a decent DraftKings option in terms of a GPP play, just because he does have that killer to be killed mentality. He might gas out later. I don't know. There's not that many dogs down low because a lot of them could be knocked out in that first round, Mccann included, but I do think it's a decent floor there. So I think it's gonna be a fun fight. I'm excited to watch. I am gonna be cheering for that violence. Just depends if I get there or not, right? So we'll have to see if the number's right. Hopefully I don't get sucked into a line and then have him get nuked early on, but we'll see how it goes, man. Appreciate the breakdown. Let's keep it rolling. This next one too can be pretty fun. Ilia Topuria, 11-1. Jai Herbert, 11-3. Ilia Topuria making weight. Woohoo! You want to know why? He's up a weight class, and that's what matters. There's been a lot of beef between him and Patty this week, and I think that's kind of overshadowing the fact he's facing Jai Herbert here. And Jai's a guy who's got a good skill set in his own right, but this is a tough matchup for him. If you look, let's say anatomically, you have the big reach advantage for Herbert, the size advantage. But skill-wise, I think there is a very, very big gap. But I'll let you continue on that fact. Who do you got winning this one?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on Topuria by sub here. I'm going to be on Topuria to win the fight in the first 2 rounds. When I look at Jai Herbert, he's not a bad fighter. He's just a fighter who's not being match made for success in the UFC, right? Like, they don't want him to win fights. They don't give a shit about Jai Herbert. I'm just telling you the truth, right? Jai Herbert is on this fight card, in my opinion, to build up somebody like Ilia Topuria, to be a local guy who, you know, people can get behind in the moment and then feign shock and awe when he gets finished in the first round. That's my opinion, right? I don't think that Ilia Topuria is necessarily proven that he's a top 3 guy in the world. And, you know, some guys will come at you with very broad opinions. I'm trying to break up one matchup at a time. And when I look at this matchup, I see one guy in Jai Herbert who struggled at the UFC level, right? He had an aging Francisco Trinaldo. They try and give him a fight where it's like, hey, here's a welcome to the UFC that's manageable, an older guy. I love Trinaldo. Didn't look like himself in that fight. Was getting beat up all night. And by just being around for long enough, lands a massive punch, late stoppage. Jai Herbert takes a bunch more punches that he didn't need to take. So ugly knockout. The guy had been knocked out before. Okay, mental note. So then, all right, we see him take on Renato Moicano. By the way, chinny-ish guy that you could potentially knock out if you're a guy with big power, guy that you could, you know, get after. And also former 45ers. So don't come at me with but Renato's so tall and he's, I know, but he's also a former 45er. Not a huge difference. Okay. So what does he do? He goes out there and he outclasses him, right? He's just much better. Jai Herbert, he then gets a win over Kama Worthy, right? Kama Worthy, I bet substantial money on Jai Herbert to win that fight. I bet him to win it in round 1. I bet him to win it by knockout. So it's not like I don't know who Jai Herbert is and what he's capable of. But you feed him chinny fighters that will engage him on the feet, Jai Herbert's going to feast. The guy's not bad at that. The UFC was like, hey, man, thanks for falling on all these grenades. Here's a win. But they're like, back to work, Jai. Here, time to fall on another grenade, my friend. Ilia Topuria, after he has the, athletic commission cut off his weight cut last time out, not him, by the way. Everybody's like talking all the shit and whatever. I get it, right? He brought it upon himself. He talks shit, gets some shit talk back to him. Maybe that's why the line opened a little bit closer. But then you watch the skills, right? Yes, he's not doing this to the best guys in the world. But when he has fought, steps up in competition, right? Ryan Hall, going to be good at the grappling. Defends every takedown. Nothing even comes close to being a real takedown. Then knocks him out instantly. Okay. Damon Jackson, guy who's now accumulated some UFC wins. Done it before. Wins on the regional level. Pretty high level of competition for Damon Jackson, broadly speaking. Folding him up. Bad. Really devastating fashion. Okay, so the guy's got hands. What else about him? I don't know. He put Yusuf Zalal in about 500 submission attempts on 3 days' notice or whatever it was in his UFC debut. Couldn't get him out of there. Yusuf Zalal's a little wiry. He was cutting a 45 at the time. Didn't have the gas tank to go the full 15. So, yeah, maybe around that 12-minute mark, he's like, let me just preserve. Let me hold on. Let me get the win. F all this, trying to finish this guy. He's wiry as shit and not going away easy. Okay, who finished Yusuf Zalal easy in the UFC? That didn't happen either. He's just a guy who's not very good at winning minutes of fights, but he's durable and he's tough and he gets in fights. You know, he throws a lot of shots. So I think that was a fight, good learning experience, good growth. We've seen more from Topuria in the fight since. I think that this guy's for real, right? I watch his regional footage. The guy's getting takedowns. He's putting people through the series. He's getting on top of them. He's getting chokes. I think in this fight, you know, the guy's no fool. He knows that they want him to go out there, take down Jai Herbert, submit him quickly, and call out somebody else, like maybe Patty Pimblett or somebody that they can make a big fight, move this guy along. I think that, you know, when I look at who is being set up for success in the UFC, it's somebody like an Ilia Topuria, right? It's somebody like a Patty Pimblett, guys that they want to work with moving forward. So it doesn't mean that they're going to win the fights. It doesn't mean that there's a guarantee. It doesn't mean the UFC, like Pride back in the day, is slipping the guy, 6 figures or a couple extra hundreds in his paycheck for taking the fall. He throws the first head kick. Referee's got an earpiece, as Chael Sonnen likes to say. But it's just a different scene, right? This is, real cage fights. They're going to put out 2 guys that both want to win. The difference is one of them they want to work with. They want to set him up for success. The other guy, he's just a guy on the roster. They're going to have him back maybe one more time to lose to another guy they want to build and promote and work with moving forward. So it's like that for me is the tier that I put somebody like Jai Herbert on. Unfortunately, at this point in his UFC run, barring an improvement in the takedown defense, but the guy can't stop takedowns reliably, I don't believe. Against somebody like Ilya, that's a problem. The guy's just competent on top. He's going to pass the guard. He's going to bust you open with elbows, and he's probably going to finish you, if not from the back, with that front headlock series. So, yeah, I think he's just swimming uphill. It's going to be tough.
I got to be careful how much I talk about this fight because I did have a very large wager, a parlay piece between Topuria and Wood. And Wood is gone. So I'm very, very sad that fight's gone. I still think Topuria absolutely wipes the floor with him. He broke it down perfectly. I'm not going to spend too much more time doing the same thing you just did. Topuria is a great fighter. He's got a very good opportunity to do well in the UFC. And he's not getting a hand-picked opponent, but he's getting an opponent that the UFC knows he can beat. Herbert's been knocked out. He is not the best ground fighter. And Topuria's be able to take advantage of that. I think Topuria finishes him really easily. Of course, the finish line is minus 275. That line's kind of wide. It's kind of gone. I'm just mad that I don't have that parlay anymore. So I got to figure another way to put Topuria because I do think he wins. He is my favorite DraftKings play of the week just because of that finish upside and the ability to do it either on the ground with takedowns or on the feet with knockdowns. He just has him covered everywhere. Sure, the length may be an issue, but Topuria's got this. He's hungry. You saw him literally throw things at Paddy Pimblett. He wants this win. He wants to go call out his bowl cut buddy. And I just think it's going to be fun. I hope he goes out there and he does very, very well. Hope we actually get to see him fight. The big thing for me, too, is if we're going to compare fighters and we're going to compare Herbert and Charles Jourdain, I know Jourdain was coming out on short notice, but I don't know how Jourdain was a bigger underdog than Herbert is. I'm not trying to be mean to Herbert, but he has a lot of holes in his game, and I think Topuria is going to exploit them. I'm all in on him. I just got to figure out how I should put my hard-earned money on him. Maybe I use him as a parlay piece for something. Maybe I target the sub like you did. I have no idea, just because, like I said 3 times already, my bet with Wood is gone, and I'm a bit heartbroken. But before I cry about that, let's move on. I do think Topuria wins, and we're going to leave it at that. Next fight up, Molly Mccann. Speaking of home crowd favorites, Molly Mccann 11-4, Luana Carolina 8-2. I'm going to keep this one simple. I cannot get Luana Carolina right. She is just a thorn in my side. I like Molly Mccann, but I'm not betting against her because Carolina just hates me. Something about her. Anyways, I think it's going to be a really fun fight. Does it deserve to be on the main card? Maybe because the person's in his hometown. Sure, we'll give her that, but there's a lot of better fights in this one. I'll let you take this one away. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, man. I mean, I basically agree with you on all fronts. I think that this is a Molly Mccann win. I think that she's going to throw volume. I think she's going to come forward. I think she's probably going to secure some takedowns. I think that the judges are going to be predisposed to give the fight to her. I think the crowd is going to be going bananas anytime she does anything of note, even when she doesn't do things of note. So, yeah, it's really just a fight that I would normally be inclined to take Luana Carolina in this kind of spot as an underdog. I have cashed on her in the past doing that. I did lose money trying to fade her with Lupi Godinez, but I think that was really a size issue. And the fact that Lupi is not comfortable on the feet. So when her takedown game fell apart, she really was just uncomfortable in the fight. And I don't think that that's going to be the case for Molly. She's going to come forward. She's going to throw strikes unless she gets knocked out here. By one of those like stray head kicks or something like that. I think she's probably just going to walk this girl down with pressure, volume, takedown attempts, and ride out the 15 minutes here to a decision win.
Hey, bro, don't blame you at all. I think that sorry, I was looking at the last fight, the Topuria. How I'm going to play that one. What's a good parlay piece this week? What's a juice number that you would never bet straight, but that just gives you some degen here. But I think that's really just you're able to get money down on that. I think over 1.5 is probably the safest thing of the week. But oh well, we'll see how I get there. I'm just such a cranky little man in the morning thinking about my wood bet gone. But oh well. I same thing as you. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I don't want anything to do with those judges, especially being the hometown judges. We talked about that earlier. We're not going to talk about it more. I think that range wise, I think Carolina has a decent path to victory here. She's a big girl. Um, but Molly Meatball, she's feisty and she's gonna get the crowd going. She's gonna get the judges going, and it's just not a fight I want any part in. I'll take this fight, sit back, enjoy, count my chips after Topuria wipes the floor with them, and we'll see how it goes from there. But I think it's gonna be fun. I don't want any action on this one. I apologize for the short breakdown because not my fight. If anything, you take the whatever line is. I don't know if Tim's still in the chat to give me that line for me, but the split decision with those judges here, Molly McCann split decision. Maybe that was juice. Who knows? Not really a fight I want to get interested, not to be invested in. Sorry. Next fight up, though, we got the return. Gunnar Nelson, 17-5-1 versus Takashi Sato, 16-4. This is going to be fun. You got the return of a fighter who hasn't fought in a while versus a guy short notice replacement, Takashi Sato. Pretty binary fight. How do you see this one going down, my friend?
Yeah, I like Gunnar Nelson, man. I've always liked Gunnar. I think he's a good fighter. I also think that, time away, it's not something you love. People do come back a little rusty sometimes. I don't think that that's outside the realm for Gunnar here, but I just think over the course of the 15 minutes, he's going to find his footing. He's going to find his range. He's got pretty good counter shots, and I think that Gunnar's probably going to be able to sting this guy if he wants, but if he's smart, he's just going to get after him. He's going to force him to wrestle. I don't think he's very good at that. I also think his gas tank might be a little bit limited if he's forced to do that. On the Sato side, I do think Gunnar Nelson has proven he can go 15 minutes hard in the UFC. Had a couple fights where he's been taking on much higher levels of competition. And, I think of that round with Leon Edwards where late in the fight, he's able to get on top of him, cause problems for Leon in that spot. So Gunnar Nelson's been around, been dangerous for a long time. When he's fought, kind of this level of guy, he's normally put him away, often in the first round. So, if the rust is a problem, maybe I don't get involved on that first round line. Maybe I just look at Gunny by sub, -115. I think that's eventually going to cash. I have some exposure to Gunny ITD at -160. I think that that's a decent enough look. I think the problem for Gunny sub here is that he just has devastating elbows from the top position as well. He busted up Alex Cowboy Oliveira and a couple other guys with those. So it is something that he could definitely finish with his hands. He could definitely finish with those elbows. But more often than not, Gunny's going to wrap up that neck, I think.
I'm so excited to see him back in here, man. It's been so long. And I know if you're somebody who really believes in ring rust, then yes, it's scary to bet on Gunnar Nelson at this price tag. The problem is it's kind of like a handpicked matchup for him. It's a very binary fight. How has Takashi Sato lost his fights? He's been submitted, and he's been submitted pretty dominantly. And if there's anybody you don't want to go to the ground against, it's Gunnar Nelson. He's good at what he does. He's fought the best of the best in the division, and you have to give the guys respect. I'm going to talk about this one more time. At Baby Yoda Bets, thank you for giving me the shout out. But the PokerStar Sportsbook has Gunnar sub at +110 right now. I locked that up. I think that I know it sounds sketchy as a book, doesn't it? For a line to be that different. Anyways, hopefully I have cashed out. They have been really good to me, but that line is still out there. I think that's a good spot here. I do think that the inside the distance line is there. I have a couple of units on that at -130 earlier in the week. I think that that's golden. I jumped all over that because I am excited for the return of Gunnar Nelson. I'm not one that really believes in a ring rush as much as others, so I'm all over him here. I think he gets down early. I think he finishes him early. I think it's a good spot to get him back in the UFC. If we're talking about DraftKings fighters, the person with maybe the most upside on this card is Gunnar Nelson. Takedowns, control time, volume, and finishes early. He has the opportunity to do very, very well. I think he goes out there and does it. I'm excited to see his return. I'm all over him to finish here, and hopefully that me not believing in the ring rush doesn't come back to haunt me. I think he does very well. I'm excited to see this fight go down. Now, before we move on to the next one, I know we talked about this yesterday. The tweet that Sato put out there about him dying for the weight cut. How much do you look into that?
I don't know if you saw, but he actually put out a second follow-up tweet.
Yeah,
where he said that he was just joshing everybody. Hey, more power to him, but I don't think that that's going to make the difference here, unfortunately.
No, it's not. I was just wondering how much you played into that. We're all over Gunnar Nelson here. I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's hope we get the sub and cashes us that money. I'm very excited to see this one go down. All right, next fight up. Paddy the Batty Pimblett, 17-3, Rodrigo Vargas, 12-4. And I mentioned this on the aforementioned DFS video that is not out yet. I apologize for that. I'll be getting it done after this. Paddy the Batty's like turning into the next Sean O'Malley just because he's getting those handpicked matchups. He's getting those guys who are in the 15, and he's being a hype train. He's a hype train. When he faces a guy who's going to be a real competitor, sure, you'll be able to fade him, but it's really hard to fade Paddy Pimblett when he's getting an opponent he can beat as easily as someone Vargas this week. Now, no disrespect to Vargas, he could kick my ass. I don't know. We know that everybody gets in the UFC could. But he's getting a tough opponent here in Paddy, a guy who's going to have the crowd advantage, who's out there, who's an entertainer looking to finish. And this is another spot where I was looking at the sub line here. Sub line opened at plus 280. I did not get that. I wish I did, because I think that's a good way that Paddy gets his fights won. A lot of people are looking at his first round finish last time and knockout on the feet. Yeah, most time doesn't work like that for him. He's a guy who has a good ground game, who's able to submit people, and Vargas has fallen to that. Now, do I see this fight being close? Yes. But do I see a finish happening? Of course. I'm all over the finish here. I think Paddy gets it done. I think the hype train continues rolling on. And when he faces a more experienced fighter, then we can fade him. But are you with me on the Paddy the Batty side here?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that there was a prop that the hold on one second.
No worries, man. The dogs are barking. Not in this.
Oh yeah, the dogs are barking, but yeah, hopefully it's for something that you heard before. When I'm talking about this fight, what I'm looking at is I got a Paddy sub ticket at plus 280. FanDuel's been trying to buy me out of that all week. You're not getting it back, you sons of bitches. So I'm happy with that price. I think it's a good look. My only question and debate is like, how much exposure am I comfortable having on this guy? Because, I did put down a pretty decent sized bet on that. I think it's about 2.5 units at the plus 280 figure. So, went pretty big. I thought it was a mispriced line. It clearly was. The market's moved big time in my favor there. So when I look at this, matchup, the thing that stands out to me is Vargas has really been fighting bottom of the barrel type competition, right? And, when you look back at his regional footage before he got to the UFC, he's fighting guys that are like 6-0 and having very back and forth competitive minutes in those fights, largely predicated on success in the stand-up. And I think if Paddy's wise here, and I do think that he is smart to what his game plan should be based on how he trained for this fight. He came to the States, he got some work in terms of his wrestling, his grappling, his offensive takedowns. I think that's going to be important. But also, let's say Vargas takes him down. I do think Paddy can work off his back competently. He's shown an ability to submit people from his back. He's shown an ability to pull guard standing and fly with triangles. I know that sounds low percentage, but he's got an opponent where he could probably pull off some crazy shit like that. Alex Caceres' older brother, I believe it was, submitted this guy regionally back in the day. So we've never really seen evidence that Vargas has like a terrible chin or something like that. That's the reason I went with the sub play. I do think Paddy might clip him on the feet, but either way, he's probably just going to lock on a sub at some point and look for the finish. That's what I'm expecting here. So give me Paddy the Batty sub in round 1 or 2.
They're not getting your ticket, bro. That's all yours, and I love it. I'm jealous. I got plus 245 on that one. I like Paddy. I think he's an entertaining fighter. Does he have as much promise as Ilia Topuria? Probably not. He's definitely going to be a guy that will be publicly faded shortly. It's just not here. If he takes the Sean O'Malley route and faces a bunch of guys who he knows he can beat, might have a long history. Before I move on, just have a little bit of fun. Who you got in that Paddy versus Ilia fight?
Come on, bro.
I know. Just wanted to hear it. Just want to hear it.
Yeah, Ilia would probably do really disgusting things to Paddy. He's a little bit smaller, but I'm not sure it would matter.
Skill-wise, and that's just saying. And the thing, too, is who's better? Who would win in a fight, Jai Herbert or Paddy the Batty? And I know that's stylistically different, but I do think that Topuria.
I was going to say, unfortunately for Jai Herbert, Paddy also knows how to grapple, so. Yeah. Jai Herbert's just going to have a couple tough matchups in the UFC with people that can grapple, I think.
Hey, I'm on Topuria all day here. I like the drama. It's funny to see that happening. Go check out some of the articles on current MMA. But yeah, it's one of these ones where it's not happening yet, but maybe it will. Odds are they probably call somebody out. We all know Paddy the Baddy's got some nice little interviews at the end. He's a pretty entertaining fighter. So I hope that gets done. But right now, the fact of the matter is he's facing a guy in Vargas who got it all day. I'm taking Paddy the Baddy. I have him to finish here in a couple bets of mine. I have him by sub as well. And I just wish I had that money. Screw you, FanDuel. You're not getting that ticket back. Liam's going to cash it this weekend. All right, with that, we're on to the two. I don't know if I've seen fights as like contested or like close fights for both the co-main and main event in a while. Start off with the co-main. Arnold Allen 17-1, Dan Hooker 21-11. And the big question everybody this week was, how is Dan Hooker going to look on the scales? I have the answer for you guys. He is shredded. What? He looks like an absolute beast out there, and you can't tell me otherwise. I did not like seeing that because, truth of the matter is, I do have a ticket on Arnold Allen. So, wow, Dan Hooker looks good. So, how does that play into your read on this one?
Yeah, I was on the Hooker side, and I was waiting for the weigh-in to see, exactly what we were working with. However, I had a lot of confidence in his ability to make the weight. My question was just, how does he look? Does he look good? Does he look comfortable? I thought, broadly speaking, the answer was yes. And he looks fired up. I question people's motivation sometimes. If they've come off some losses, if there's things like this, like what are they fighting for? What are they trying to do? And Dan Hooker, he's in a really, 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 really good position here. In terms of his career, where the guy can go from being a middling 155er to a top tier 145er in one fight. That's what he kind of has in front of him here. Goes back to being in the top 10 on a win streak, long one, one long, but still I do think that the way he's talking about this fight, he understands everything that's at stake, which is this guy's got a long win streak. I can take everything from him in one fight. Very easy way to get myself back in contention. I'm going to do it. Lifestyle commitment is what it takes for Dan Hooker to make 145. I think that that's been there, obviously. Worked with a nutritionist, said all the right things in the interviews. I like that. I like everything about what he's done to get to 145. Talked about the fact that, when I left 145, I envisioned myself coming back down at some point. I just wanted to get more experience. I knew that I wasn't ready to contend for titles yet anyway in the UFC. I just think he's being realistic with himself. Hey, if last year was a year to make a bunch of money for the pandemic, this has to be the year where I try and win like a real fight. The Sadiq win, everybody is impressed by, right? Chris says the same here. I'm not all that impressed by Sadiq Yusuff, right? And I do think there will be opportunities to fade him again in the very near future. When I look at that Caceres fight, I almost got involved on Caceres, but ultimately he didn't have the athleticism to match him there. I do think that Arnold Allen's an athletic guy. He's a fast guy. He's a guy who's got interesting skills in all positions. He's not a slouch anywhere. But I look at this fight and I say, is he going to out-wrestle Dan Hooker over 15 minutes? I don't believe so. Dan Hooker is a big guy. He's a strong guy. He's physical. He's a big back. Like, guys that have tried to wrestle him, with the exception of Islam Makhachev, who is very high level and much, much bigger, he was able to easily get on top of him, right? I'm not saying that Hooker's fought the world's best wrestlers either, but normally if he's getting taken down, it's later in a fight. It's a 5-rounder. He's been pushed to the brink. But at 45, he was a hard guy to take down. He had a lot more success stuffing takedowns. He was a big body, hard for these guys to move. He's also made significant improvements time over time. He's been getting better at fighting. He's been introducing the threat of wrestling himself into a lot of these fights. And I do question, does he take down Arnold Allen this weekend? I don't think it's outside the realm. He's a big physical guy. If he's getting in the clinch, Arnold Allen might try and get in really close to him. Big outside trip from somebody like Dan Hooker, he might send you to your back. And we've seen Arnold Allen get taken down in the past. We've seen Arnold Allen get, outstruck in a couple of his fights. So when I look at this matchup, I say, is there a concern that Dan Hooker gets touched on the chin? Yes. Is there a concern that Dan Hooker slows down, can't take the shots as well because he's cutting down to 145? For sure. I like the visuals. I liked everything I saw. I liked everything I heard. And stylistically, I think this is a fair fight for him to win. I see a guy in Arnold Allen who is relying on big moments to win fights and rounds. What is Dan Hooker doing? He's out there outworking Nasrat Haqparast like a clinician, round over round over round, just doing more, throwing more shots, staying more active. He got hit with shots. Okay, yeah, no problem. But he just kept throwing, and then he worked in takedowns. Okay, you want to start throwing back with me? No problem. I'll take you down now. I'll push you into the fence. I'll work you against the cage in the clinch. I think he's going to do all those things. I think he's going to outland Allen here. And so the question is, can Allen use those tactics? He's a very tactical fighter. He's a very smart fighter. He wins rounds. He wins minutes. He manages fights quite well. But he also fights on that very thin line. Right? He fights on very narrow margins. And for that reason, I'm not laying chalk on the guy. Not when he's taking on the biggest step up in his career, I would argue. Sadiq Youssef, I've heard a lot of people say he would be lined a favorite against Dan Hooker. Okay, line him a favorite against Dan Hooker. Run that one out there. I'll play the other side there too. So I think Dan Hooker, unless he's severely compromised at 145, is going to win this fight. And if not win it cleanly, I think he's going to be the one who's able to grit it out, win a couple close rounds, push through. And I'm really scared of the KO on the other side. I don't think Arnold Allen's the biggest knockout threat, but I do have those question marks. Dan Hooker's known for that iron durability, did get knocked out quickly by Mike Chandler. But again, fighting the big guys at 155, fighting guys who are cutting down from 190 who hit like trucks. I know we all look from the outside and say, this guy, Dan Hooker, is huge. But he can make 145. There's a lot of guys that he's fought that simply can't and never would. So that's the difference. He did it the right way, did go about the test cut the right way as well last November. I think there's a lot to like about Dan Hooker this weekend as a slight underdog. I do think it's going to be a close fight. I don't think anybody's finishing, right? I think this fight goes the distance more often than not. So those are a couple of my takes on this one. I think Dan Hooker is going to win this fight by decision. I did bet that. I did bet Dan. But I'm not going huge on this fight. I do think that both guys can win. I think both guys are competent fighters. Arnold Allen doesn't do enough to me. He doesn't fight enough. And I don't know where his development is at as a result of some of those things. So potentially we see the best product to date from Arnold Allen, and he's able to best somebody like Dan Hooker. But based on what I've seen so far, I would not line him a favorite against Dan Hooker personally. And on top of that, I do think Dan Hooker, hindsight, could look like a significant favorite here if he's able to get off on his game early and take the shots without going down. Yeah, as my man Tim said, Great Britain judging. Still, though, I feel like they're going to have to really rob Dan Hooker here because I do think he's going to get off on more volume. And unless he gets hurt, wobbled, optically, rocked, that doesn't really happen to him a lot. It just doesn't. The guy is willing to take shots and keep coming forward. He took an absolute shellacking from Edson Barboza and only went down when he got hit with a body shot that was untenable. The guy is not going to go down, I don't think, easily to Arnold Allen. I think he's going to give him a really hard, honest fight. And I think that this is a shaky win streak for Arnold Allen. Somebody mentioned that above. He's had a couple good come from behind wins. He's had a couple close decisions go his way, a few things like that. He's edged a couple of rounds late. That's all great. That's all awesome. But I like Dan Hooker.
Well, I looked at this fight early, and I did all my tape very, very early last week. And it's not a fight that you can really bet without seeing how Dan Hooker looks. He has to do a very big weight cut. And I know he's doing it the proper way, but sometimes you have to see how he looks. So I did this last week, and I bet Arnold Allen. I think that people are really hard on his win streak, but it's still a win streak in the UFC, and I think he does have some incredible wins there. Sure, it's not as good as people might want it to be, but still an 8-fight win streak. He has a good skill set. He has a well-rounded game, and the wins haven't been as emphatic as people want them to, but they've still been wins. I think that Arnold Allen is a very, very good fighter, but he's getting a very, very big step up here. And if this fight was at 155, really, no question. But that weight cut is something you're going to have to look into. It's something that's very, very apparent in this fight. So I do see Dan Hooker looking great, and I'm scared for my Arnold Allen bet. I think skill for skill, we know who's the better fighter. Optically, we also know who the better fighter is. Hometown judges is maybe only taking for my ticket, but point being, I have a plus 105 ticket on Arnold Allen. If I wanted to, I could bet the other side at plus 105, take a little bit of arbitrage, and be done with it. But I don't know. It's going to be a very, very close fight. I think if you're taking a DraftKings size on this, I think volume-wise, I don't know how hard I don't know how easily Allen's going to get takedowns here. I don't think it's going to happen as much as he wants it to. Hooker's a very, very strong guy. So I think on DraftKings wise, you have to go Hooker. Big moment wise, I know you're right in the terms of the Allen side. What I'm trying to say is I bet Allen thinking the line was going to move, and it did. Would I bet it again? No. And that's the problem is, do I get rid of this bet or not? I don't know. I'm sit in the middle. I could talk all day about being on either side. I'm just going to leave to the point of I'm undecided. I have a bet on Arnold Allen strictly because I knew the line was going to move. That plus money was going to be gone. Would I do it again? Probably not. I might just take my arbitrage and be done. But I'm really excited to see the return of Dan Hooker at this weight class. I'm very, very excited to see how he looks. I like the fact that he wake up properly. He looks great. He's going to be a great fight. There's no question about it. I know a lot of people are saying like Dan Hooker is going to maul this guy. No matter what, this fight's going to be very, very close. I don't see it being like any guy looking like a huge favorite here. I'm cheering for Dan Hooker. I like the guy, but I do have my money on Arnold Allen. I'm with Chris. I got plus 105. I got to see where I end up, but I'm just excited to see this fight go down. My DraftKings video will be out later. I did talk about it a bit more, but I'm going to keep it simple. Liam broke it down perfectly for you guys.
Can I tell you something interesting, Gordo?
Of course. I love your interesting facts.
Arnold Allen, he's on an 8-fight win streak, and he has 2 fights in the bunch where he's thrown and landed more than 40 significant strikes.
Yep.
So that's going to be tough against somebody like
he's
Dan
not going to be
Hooker.
able to win. Yeah, you can't.
That's the real thing that throws me off. And among those ones where he went over the total, the 2 opponents were Gilbert Melendez and Nick Lentz, who are both ancient. And I say that again with respect, but for their division, they're ancient. Like they were just ancient at the time he fought them. So, I take a little bit away from that. I don't think that was that's not a prime Gilbert Melendez win for Arnold Allen. It's just like dancing around a guy who wasn't throwing very much. Just a couple wins like that on there where scratching my head. The Carney Nick Lentz is walking you down for a round. I'm like, okay, that's a big concern. Ate a bunch of leg kicks there, didn't really have a great answer as well. So going to need to see an improvement in his game as far as I'm concerned for him to beat somebody like Dan Hooker. He's going to have to address leg kicks better. Dan Hooker will beat your calf the hell to shreds. Like he'll just rip it apart. Ask Ally Aquinta, right? That was like one of the more brutal beatdowns that goes to decision. He just beat the shit out of the guy for 15 minutes. So I think Dan Hooker, very capable of putting on clinical striking performances if you don't throw a lot of volume. So, if Allen approaches this smart, maybe we see a little bit of him fighting against form here and he could put away Dan Hooker. But, it's a lot to ask.
All right, maybe I'll take my arbitrage and leave. I think you had some great points there. I'm excited for the fight. I don't know. Maybe we'll see if I'm up or not. I want to let it ride. So many decisions to make. Definitely, if we're looking at the bets I've placed on this card, this is nowhere near one I'm extremely confident in. Like I mentioned, I knew the line was going to move. So I'm excited to see this one go down. Maybe I'll go do some more tape. I know you got to look over that Makayev fight. So maybe I'll go look over this fight. And it's not like watching Dan Hooker tape is boring at all. So maybe I'll go do that, have some fun. So I appreciate your breakdown, man. Let's get her going with the last fight of the night. The main event, Alexander Volkov, 34-9, Tom Aspinall, 11-2. Before I let you take this one down, I got a win-win here. All right. I got a bet on Tom Aspinall at underdog. And it's pretty simple. I also have a bet with Dan, best fight picks. If Aspinall wins, I'll have money made. But if Volkov wins, he's got to do a shoey. So it's a win-win for me. I just see this one going down.
Yeah, so the way I see this one going down is it's a pretty binary fight, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe this is proven wrong. Oh, I think that would be new data that we'd have to change the way we look at Tom Aspinall moving forward, right? But the guy, so far, he's had a pro career, he's had an amateur career. The guy's never seen past the 9-minute mark of a fight, and he has lost before, right? So we got to take that into account. You look at the fight that he lost, got taken down multiple times by Stuart Austin. This is a fight that happened 6 years ago, so we'll give him some breaks. Obviously, I'm sure he's improved significantly since this time, but, kind of got out grappled there, kind of got out wrestled there, kind of got out willed, out hustled, out skilled in that spot. A lot of concerns I would have based on that performance. And that was when he was 3-0, taking on a guy who's like 8-2 or something. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Stuart Austin is like 15-7 with 6 losses by knockout. So the guy is not very good and is beatable on the feet. Aspinall couldn't beat him on the feet, did get taken down, lost the fight. Okay, so now we see Tom Aspinall. What's his rise been like? He fought a bunch of complete cans in Cage Warriors, like not good fighters, older guys, small guys, like just nobody very good. And then he came to the UFC and he knocked out Jake Collier instantly. Impressive win. Jake Collier got a couple wins under his belt in the division, but frankly, he's a former 85er. It's kind of a gimme matchup. Okay, welcome to the UFC. Tom Aspinall knocks out Alan Badeau. This is a guy who's going life and death with Parker Porter. Need I say more? It's like the guy's not very good at fighting. I love him. Great performance last time out. Much improvement. Got to just credit and respect him for taking all my money. Shout out you, Alan Badeau. But seriously, he's not a very good fighter. So, okay, he beats him, knocks him out in the first round. Frankly, that knockout was like Alan Badeau landing a couple shots, getting over aggressive, getting over confident, sprinting forward, runs onto a shot, gets flatline, right? Bad knockout. Okay. Then he takes on Andrei Arlovski. And normally this is where prospects go to die, right? It's like they go to the Arlovski fight, they lose the greasy split. And, I think we were well on our way to a fight that could have unfolded like that. And Aspinall flipped the script on him, right? He did something that heavyweights rarely do. He pursued a takedown, took Andre off guard, knocked him right over, easy takedown. Normally Andre will take an underhook something. I don't think he expected it at all. I think he was like, what the fuck? He got taken off guard, got blasted off his feet, got submitted instantly, and he was embarrassed. He literally just was like, you got me. Like, it was like caught with his thumb up his ass. It was a embarrassing loss for Arlovski, really. It just was. Like, it was a mistake. It was like a lapse in focus. It was just bad. There was no grappling there. There was no, it was just ugly. That's a 42-year-old, right? He bum rushed a 42-year-old and took him down, takes his back. Okay, God bless him. And then his last fight, right? Sergey Spivak. I thought there was some legs to a Spivak bet there. I thought Spivak's going to come out here. He's going to aggressively try and take this guy down. He's going to go out there and try and push the pace. Really didn't see that. Spivak was afraid of him, didn't want to engage him, stays on the outside, kind of getting picked apart a little bit, tries to enter the clinch, and gets hit with a knee to the body, right? Big knee to the body. Ooh, folds him up. Gets hit with the elbow, same way that Jake Collier did. So, nice job. Obviously, this guy has potent offense striking. It's like, who could ignore that? He's got fast hands. He's got a big hand speed advantage against Alexander Volkov. Who could ignore that? I agree. My problem is just that doesn't translate to me to this guy is destined to knock out Alexander Volkov in the first round. And that seems to be what everybody thinks. I look at this fight breakdown and I see that he's getting bet as an underdog, and I get it. There's a lot to like about him. He's a young guy. He's got promise. He's got fast hands. Alexander Volkov's been a favorite in a lot of his UFC run, and the reason being is because he's a good fighter, and he's got a lot of credible wins under his belt. He went on a serious run, almost was fighting for the heavyweight title, should have been fighting for the heavyweight title. Beat Fabricio Verdum by knockout. I want to say that was in Brazil. If I'm wrong, it was still a knockout over a former champion, fourth round. Big win, statement win by Volkov on a 4-fight win streak. Fights Derek Lewis, the Black Beast. Tough scenes, right? All right, tough matchup. Goes out there and shit kicks Derek Lewis. Anybody go back and rewatch that fight. He beat the hell out of him, but Volkov doesn't have the biggest power in the world. So he wasn't able to get Lewis out of there. Had him hurt several times, guys. Several times. Like, Derek was ready to fold up and quit more than once. Got hit to the body, didn't like it. You know how Derek doesn't like those body shots. But Volkov wasn't able to put him away because he was a little bit too afraid of spending himself. He was a little bit too afraid of, what happens if I try to put this guy away and I don't get it. I think that was a mistake, right? I think if he had just put the pedal to the floor, he finishes Derek Lewis and he fights for a title, and we're not having this conversation. So I do think Volkov is that damn good, right? Lets his foot off the gas, trying to hold pace. I think he just let the pressure of the moment get to him. Everybody's cheering for Lewis. It feels like the comeback's inevitable as Lewis just takes 4 minutes in the third round to charge up and then swing wildly for the last minute. And he ends up catching him with 15 seconds on the clock. Devastating loss for Volkov. Sets back his career, right? Other than that, who has he lost to in the UFC? He loses a fight to Ciryl Gane. Very good competitive decision, right? He actually won a round, by the way, when people were thinking, this is the future of the division, this, whatever. And by the way, Ciryl Gane was minus 160 or something in that spot. Ciryl Gane, who was minus 300 against everybody else, minus 150 or whatever against Francis. It's like everybody is sure that Ciryl Gane's going to win every fight, except when he's fighting Volkov. And they're like, I don't know, this is an interesting challenge. Volkov's good. Volkov went out there. What was his problem in the Ciryl Gane fight? It was clear. He went for leg kicks. He went for things like body work. And Ciryl Gane did the more flashy work upstairs. He landed the more effective shots. And Volkov got caught not doing anything that really hurt him. Like, Ciryl Gane just did more things that hurt Volkov, backed him up more, but they went 25 minutes. And I know Ciryl Gane's not the world's most devastating finisher, but he can finish guys. He can put guys away. He can put a pace to guys. He can make it unsustainable. Derek Lewis was like, F this. I'm not doing it no more, right? Jairzinho kind of just stayed at the end of range and got picked apart, didn't really offer any resistance, got 50-45, pretty cleanly there. So different fight. Volkov actually went out there, made it a fight, went out there, tried to strike with the guy. Also, what's the problem? Ciryl Gane can go 25 minutes. He's proven that, right? When you mix in the grappling, maybe he can't do it as well. So I think if Volkov had knew that, he would have been like, shit, I should have tried to grapple this guy a little bit. Because if you look, Volkov's not a bad grappler. And he's not a bad wrestler either. He was getting taken down by Curtis Blades, who's by far and away the best wrestler in the division, right? But he was making him work. He was getting back up to his feet. He was able to stay with him for 5 rounds. Excuse me. For a competitive decision. Thank you, my friend. So when I look at this guy, I see Volkov as a guy who's been around the block. He's been doing 5-round fights, scheduled for 5-round fights since 2012. Excuse me, one more. And now we're feeling good. But this guy is dangerous, right? He's got knockout power. It's not the most tremendously potent, but he'll stick you to the body, right? He's going to make you work. So I see this as a fight where, yeah, it's possible that Tom Aspinall comes out here, uses that hand speed to knock him out. We saw Minakov get off on quick uppercuts, straight punches, head kicks, things like that. He was able to just bum rush Volkov early. Okay. But other than that, I don't know, the Derek Lewis knockout. Derek Lewis, the most prolific knockout puncher in UFC history. Who else has badly hurt Volkov? I know he got hit cleanly against Marcin Tybura, but if you listen to his explanation, his rationale, it all makes perfect sense. He's like, yeah, Marcin Tybura, the only way he wins this fight is if he takes me down. So I wasn't really concerned about the punches coming back. I was concerned about getting taken down. I didn't let him take me down. I knew I was going to win the fight. Yeah, he was right. He won 30-27. He defended 16 takedowns. Everybody's trying to shit on that fight. I'm like, yeah, Marcin's on a 5-fight win streak. He's a pretty big size heavyweight. He's not the best hitter in the world. That's his best fight in the UFC. Marcin Tybura has never fought better than that. I hate to tell you guys. That's his best fight in the UFC, and he got 30-27 by Alexander Volkov. That's the truth. The guy was switching stances. He was introducing, shots from multiple sides. He's switching, throwing body kicks, head kicks. He fought for 15 minutes, didn't run out of gas. All impressive stuff from Marcin Tybura. Where does that make Volkov bad now? I'm like, I don't understand. I don't fathom. I don't follow. I know that he's the older guy. He's like 34. I know that he's taking shots clean to the chin. He's a pretty tough, durable guy. Broadly speaking, he's a tough, durable guy. He's a guy who's going to, continue to throw for 25 minutes. He's going to throw a lot of volume over the course of the fight. The guy's pretty dangerous in the grappling, man. He took down Curtis Blades in round 4. He stayed in it. He didn't get discouraged by the fact he'd been taken down for 15 minutes. So I'm like, he's not an easy guy to put away. He's not an easy guy to outstrike. He's not an easy guy to take down. He's not an easy guy to submit. What am I missing here? It's like, I think Volkov's going to make this an honest fight at worst, right? So I think pick him, okay. Now he's starting to be plus money as an underdog here. And I'm like, really? That just seems a little bit aggressive to me. I get Tom Aspinall's got fast hands. I get he's got knockouts. I get he's not lost in the UFC. But he hasn't faced real competition. Who's the best win on his record? Sergey Spivak? I mean, let's be fair. Andrei Arlovsky at 42?
Jake Collier.
Jake, the prototype Collier from 85. It's like, there's just not a lot of substance to this win streak. Not regionally, not professionally. So, yes, Tom Aspinall is a bright prospect. Yes, he's got a lot of promise in the heavyweight division. But I hate to tell you guys, once upon a time, so was Alexander Volkov. And he was winning titles regionally, and he was doing all these things right. Tom Aspinall didn't even do that. He didn't win any regional titles. He's got a decent jiu-jitsu game. He's a black belt under his father. It's like, God bless him. I wish the best for him. Maybe he turns out that all his credentials are real. But we have no reason to suggest that as far as I'm concerned. He's got a decent takedown, one of them against Andrei Arlovsky. All right? Did some decent work on the feet, beat up a couple of bums in the clinch. I mean, Just being fair, just leveling with you guys about what I've seen. Okay, he's got fast hands. He's got good punching. He's got potent offense. I don't think his defense is very good. I don't think his defense is all that sound. Not to see, we haven't seen it tested at a high level. But that's my point. When it was tested against Andrei Arlovsky, when Andrei Arlovsky blitzed him with wild punches, he got through it. When he hit Andrei, backed him up onto the fence, not a very wise strike selection, I would argue, right? He holds him against the fence, throws about 20 as hard as he can, committed right hooks to the body, and then has to hold on to the guy for dear life for the next 2 minutes because he's completely exhausted. So I'm like, that doesn't seem promising to me. Does it seem like it's high fight IQ to grip onto somebody, to let some time expire? I think all that made sense. But is he going to be able to replicate these performances against somebody the skill level of Volkov? I don't buy it. So maybe he knocks him out early, and I think that that's a lot of his win equity here. I'm going to have to decide with Alexander Volkov here. And so main and co-main event, I like the dogs. I think the dogs might bark in those fights, and I just think that we got a couple guys who are being overlooked. I think we got a couple guys who are being overlooked. Dan Hooker, he's been doing work at a high level for a long time. It's a finicky, what have you done for me lately business. Alexander Volkov, this is a guy people were running to back in a couple of his fights. And when they weren't, they were losing money. People were backing Walt Harris against this guy. How was that bet, guys? It was horrible. And it got wrecked and it got ruined fast. And it got badly beat up to the body. It's like, a couple of these guys that they tried to put in there with Volkov, Alistair Overeem, by the way, who we discussed, he put away Pavlovich with the shocking quickness. Volkov walked him around the octagon and beat the shit out of him, changed his face. Like, dude, that was a brutal assault of that dude. He assaulted Alistair Overeem. Alistair's face was a mess after round 1. I thought they might stop it then. And then they sent him back out for round 2. That was a clean knockout, dude. Like, usually a lot of heavyweight fights end with somebody getting dropped and then they fall him to the ground. He literally dropped him and was like, hey, ref, look, that guy is done. And then Alistair's like on all fours rolling around. Bad knockout. So, like, when the guy has put on weight, the guy has hit a lot harder. He's done a lot more damage. I think he's been taking shots okay, too. He's a little bit slower. But that's why I didn't want to see Volkov come into this fight 265. You're not fighting a primary grappler. You're not fighting Curtis Blades going to shoot 500 takedowns. You're fighting a guy who's a little bit more fleet of foot, guy who's a little bit more aloof, guy who's a little bit more mobile. He came in 250-something, 253, I think. That's the perfect in-between. He's not 265. He's not coming in, Volkov with love handles who can only go for 12 minutes. I think he's going to be ready to show up for 25. I think he's going to be ready to fight for that amount of time. And I don't know that Tom Aspinall can say the same. He just has not gone longer than 9 minutes. I watched his amateur career, watched his pro career. So I don't know, man. I like both the underdogs. And as Chris says, they didn't open as dogs. I think that the market is normally smart, right? If you're part of the market that moved these lines, God bless you. Maybe you're right. But this is what I call the buyback. And I'm buying back on some of these guys that I agree. I agree with the odds makers. I think that Alexander Volkov should be favored in this spot. I don't have the world's most aggressive cap on him, but yeah, I actually think he should be favored here. I don't think it should be evens. I do think Volkov is a more proven fighter in a number of ways. He's been doing this a long time. He's been fighting high-level guys for a long time, and I just think that a lot of times our eye is attracted to fresh new toys, but it's one thing when you got a fresh new toy who is fighting somebody handpicked to give them a shiny win, on a UFC London card, all that stuff. Volkov is the real deal. Volkov's not a slouch. He's been brought in to lose before, like against Verdum, and he beat the fucking shit out of him. So Volkov's just not a slouch. And by the way, what, you think Tom Aspinall's got better jiu-jitsu than Fabricio? Give me a break. So maybe he's going to get him at the right time, right? Volkov's a little older now. He has some more miles under his belt. He's fought a bunch in the UFC, a bunch elsewhere. Maybe he's catching him at the right time. He did get knocked out, in a couple of these fights. Maybe he's catching him at the right time. But if he's not, and he can't go, he's going to get brutalized in the later portions of this fight. And that would be my take on this. So I like Volkov, and I like him to get it done late inside the distance.
Hey, bro, you're on both the vets here. And the thing is, I feel like if you're betting on Hooker, you should be betting on Volkov as well. The same experience, well-roundedness, um, step up in competition, like arguments you're giving for Hooker, you're also giving for Volkov. And I think there are two guys who go hand in hand. Vinny is saying that the best dogs, best money values in the card, and I think that both these fights have good value. I actually did the opposite of you on this one. I took Aspinall at plus 110. I think that he's a fighter who is up and coming, and at plus money, it's worth a shot. Did I bet on it because I taped it? No, I bet on it because I knew the line was moving. I'm able to do arbitrage now if I wanted to as well. But the more I look into it, is Volkov's a guy who has the experience, who has the length, who has a well-rounded game, who can defend those takedowns, who can keep people at range, who can beat people up, who has good cardio, has good heart. He's a good fighter. But who are they trying to put in this spotlight here? Aspinall's a young guy. It's gonna be a first time able to see him. If I could do this all over again, I maybe should take my money and just watch it because I need to assess where Aspinall is as a fighter. I know a lot of people are taking him to win because of the youth. He's shown a good ground game. He's shown takedowns. It's going to be a largely a striking match, in my opinion. It's going to be Volkov keeping people at range. I know that Aspinall has good footwork and good ability to get inside, but how often can he do that over 5 rounds? We don't know his cardio. There's so many question marks. If I have to pick one gun in my head, I'm maybe going to pick Aspinall, but do I want to put 10 units on that? I don't think I can. There's so many more things I have to see, and that's something I'm going to be seeing on this spot here. Your 5-minute breakdown is something that made me really want to cash out a bit. 1 second there, because you have the great arguments on your side. And if I'm looking the same way, if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to cash out of my Arnold Allen bet because of what you said, for that reason, I should be putting this to account as well. I'm going to give Aspinall a bigger shot, a bigger chance than I'm going to give Arnold Allen. And I just hope for a good fight. What are you going to add?
So the last thing I had here was just like, I did go deep on this fight and I took as many notes as I could, right? And the difference was, what stood out to me is I taped about a quarter of Volkov's career, and it's about 21 pages of notes, right? Good amount of notes. I taped all the footage that I could find for Tom Aspinall, and it is 7.5 pages. So the guy just hasn't been in fights. You know, he just hasn't been in long fights, hard fights. I just haven't seen him. Even that amateur fight that went the full 9 minutes, I thought that there was questionable moments in round 2 for Aspinall. You know, for a guy who is a primary, grappler, a black belt, he's made mistakes in the grappling that I'm like, that seems foundational. That seems like like a core mistake. Granted, he's shown some really competent things too. He's swept guys. You know, he's been taken down a number of times on the regional footage and then swept guys from there. So it's not like he's fish out of water off his back or anything like that. Obviously, the guy has real skills in every position. But the kind of guy who can exploit you if you've got, a little bit questionable takedown defense is actually Volkov. You know, he took down Derek Lewis like 3 or 4 times. Derek Lewis normally hits that "F you, I'm getting up" explosion, and he had a hard time. Volkov was holding him down. I was like, yo, shit, I forgot how this fight actually looked. I thought Volkov just pieced him up on the feet. No. Lewis kept going for the
MMA
ugliest takedowns you've ever seen, and then Volkov was responding. So, yeah, I basically just came away from my Volkov tape study re-impressed with the guy. I've been impressed with him a long time, been cashing on him for a long time. So maybe that's my internal bias here, is that I really like Volkov as a fighter, as a betting commodity. I do think he's been undervalued in the past. I think I bet is inside the distance at plus 165 against Walt Harris. Thanks for the free money, guys. Just insane. I think that he's a guy who gets underlooked by the market because he's not the biggest hitter, because he's not the most devastating heavyweight, because he's a little bit, goofy looking, because he's blown big opportunities as a favorite, like against Derek Lewis. But that's why when I can get him at dog odds, when I can start to get cheap prices on him, that is something I'm interested in, except against Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane, I thought, had all his bases covered, had shown me he could go the full 25. I don't know any of that shit about Aspinall. Somebody pointed it out this week. I wish I could give them full credit, but I'm drawing a blank on who it was right now. But they mentioned this kind of reminds them. In fact, I think it was Martian, John Martian, Martian MMA. If you guys don't listen, him and Ozzy, very smart guys. Listen to what they have to say. But what he was talking about was the fact that this fight reminded him of Dawkins and Lewis. And it kind of reminded me the same way. And initially in that fight, I was leaning towards Dawkins because I was like, man, he's got the good hand speed. He can move around and he can do that. But then a guy who's just been around the UFC for a long time.
Hands go boom.
Sunday, just like hit him hard, and that was the fight. And I'm like, who's the guy who hit Tom Aspinall hard in the regionals? Who's the guy who hit Tom Aspinall in the face and really made him second guess everything? I can't find it. I looked. I can't find it. So I'll take Volkov as the guy to punch him in the face hard first and find out how he responds to that adversity.
What are your thoughts on totals?
Less bullish on totals. I don't like the 3.5 distinction for 5-round fights. Poo-poo. I wouldn't play it personally, but fight doesn't go the distance. I love, not to say that it's a guarantee, it's a lock, it should be minus 500.
No, we don't say the L word, bro.
Exactly. I never do. But what I would say is this: when I look at totals, I try and look at, is this a fair price? Is this reflective of how likely this is to end inside the distance? And, Tom Aspinall, where's his decision wins? Nobody can produce them. Okay, he doesn't have them. He's going to be looking for a knockout. He's going to be looking for a submission. He's going to look to finish this fight. Alexander Volkov, what's his path to victory? I mean, yeah, he could try and outpoint this guy to a decision, but if the cardio concerns are real, if the cardio doesn't hold up over 25 minutes, we have no reason to suggest it will. We have no reason to suggest it'll hold up for 15 minutes, right? Does everybody understand this? So now we're doing another 10. We added another 10 on, we don't know if he can go over 9 minutes. So now we've got 16 minutes unaccounted for. I think that's plenty of possibility that he gasses out and gets finished in that time if he doesn't have reliable cardio. And then on top of that, Volkov, he's a guy who has been submitted, has been knocked out. He could lose this fight. He could lose this fight inside the distance. Ciryl Gane's proven he's not a prolific finisher in the UFC. Okay. But other guys who've had 25 minutes to work, they have been able to potentially finish Volkov. Minakov is an example of that as well. Scheduled for 5-minute rounds, fight goes 3 minutes, So I think that I like the fight not to go. I think heavyweights are a lot more likely to deliver on that fight not to go. And it's being priced as a normal main event fight not to go because we've been on a crazy trend, right? We got to admit, a lot of fights been going the distance. A lot of fights been going the distance in the main event. This is when I feel like it's very hard for it to do that. Both guys hit hard. It's a heavyweight fight, highly volatile. Both guys could go down. Submission upside potentially on both sides. Cardio collapse potential on both sides. I say that because my man Volkov did underperform a tiny bit in cardio last time, but I think that was due to some contextual factors. I think that was due to the fact he had a child the week of the fight. So he probably slept not at all in the lead up to that. But I think that, Volkov for me is just an undervalued betting commodity. Fight doesn't go the distance is a little bit undervalued here as well. I must admit, I played a little Volkov ITD. I did. So, I think there's some value to be had on this fight. And if you like Aspinall KO1 is like plus 600. I mean, that's how he wins his fights,
Plus 7.5.
That's how he wins his fights.
So plus 750. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful line. I didn't see that. But I think that's a good way to hedge. If you want to go big on Volkov, I think that's a good way to hedge. And if Volkov gets his shit rocked in the first round and doesn't get finished, and you see Aspinall huffing and puffing, like he kind of was in that Arlovsky fight, by the way, that's the other thing. It's like, it's one thing when people say, hey, I have no evidence that he has bad cardio either. No, I have a tiny bit of evidence that he might. He was like, and I thought in addition to that, he didn't throw any strikes. He was like, fuck this. As soon as I get a chance, I'm going to try and take this guy down. My question is, what happens if Arlovsky explodes back to his feet and gets out? I think he might have broke mentally. That's my concern here, is what happens when Aspinall's not rolling in a fight. I saw it happen against Stuart Austin, where he's not in control of the fight for like 5 seconds. He got taken down. He went for a sweep. He did whatever. They get into grappling transition. Stuart Austin goes for a leg lock. Tom Aspinall is supposed to be a leg locker, right? He's supposed to be a guy who's competent there. He has a couple wins there himself. Got leg locked easy by a guy who's like 25 pounds lighter. Stuart Austin could make light heavyweight. So, just a couple red flags, I would say.
I was not following the fight doesn't go to decision line. I looked earlier in the week. Bet365 is my main book that I just look at all the lines. It was at minus 250 when it opened. I'm like, not touching it. Minus 160 is the line right now on fight doesn't go. And that's caught my attention because you mentioned it. cardio deficiencies. If Aspinall is the real deal, he seems to be a finisher. Volkov, a guy who wants to get back, people didn't give him the best time for not finishing last time. He wants to get back out there. That is probably going to be a bet for me. Maybe I'll stick with my Aspinall plus 110. Or sorry, maybe I'll cash out my Aspinall plus 110 and stick with that instead. I like the fight not to go. I didn't realize it was that short. I think at minus 250, I'll play it. Minus 160. And it looks like it's even going up even more.
I think it's just because of that trend, dude. It's literally in my mind, I think it's because of that trend that the fight keep going to decision in the main event. People are like, let me hop on this at big plus money. I get it as like an inclination, but now I think again, buyback. This is like, minus 160 on a heavyweight main event. For Christ's sakes, like, but what did Dawkins and Lewis go 3.5 minutes or something like that? Most of the time when we were having these questions, what's it going to look like if it starts to go late? We don't always get there, right? And once you start to see a lot of action coming in the other way, I'm like, I'd rather be on the buyback side.
Yeah, personally. I'm going to take minus 160. I've decided. Anyways, I appreciate your breakdown on that one. I think you covered most of it. It's one that I'm going to sit back and watch. I think Aspinall has some good promise in the division, but we have to see where he is. We don't know his cardio. We don't know his game plan. I do like his fight IQ most of the time, but can you get there in a guy as a grizzled of a vet as Volkov? I don't know. We're going to leave it at that, guys. I appreciate everybody for tuning in at this time. If you have not done one of two things, first of all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Second of all, go subscribe to Liam's YouTube channel. He hit 1,000 subs. Let's get it to 2,000, bro. If you guys are not subscribed to him already, you guys are missing out. Absolutely beautiful content. And I appreciate you coming on the show as always. It means the world to me, man. Great breakdowns. Appreciate you. And I hope you make some money this weekend, man. Let them know where they can find you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, my brother. About to write my main event preview right now for the good people at RotoGrinder, scoresandodds.com. You can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, the primary places. And most of my betting information will be found on Twitter, so you can find it there. I do premium picks for Scores and Odds as well. If you're interested in that, you can find more information at scoresandodds.com, or you can contact me directly. Also, my picks are available on betmma.tips, so you can find them there. You can ask me personally, and all of us good guys first the bookies each and every week. Let's try and make another killing. I'm excited about this card. Let's do it.
I know, man. You killed me with that Bet MMA tips because I broke the curse and now I got to keep using it. It's just like, oh, no. Oh, well, I'm tracking on there as well. I appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. All you support the other day, hanging out in chat. Chris, Tim, Phineas, Christian, thank you very much. No problem. It's been fun. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Later tonight, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to sit at this desk and I'm editing 2 videos. Make sure you look out for the DFS picks video on the channel as always. I think it's a pretty good DFS slate tomorrow to make some money, so make sure to keep that out. Early lock, so you want to watch those videos as soon as you can. Second video making is the current MMA best bets. If you're not subscribed to that channel, I tweet about it all the time. Check them out. They're a company I'm working with now. Great guys. Go check them out for any news or sources you can trust there. But I'll be doing our best bets video. That one should be out any minute now. I sent that over. And with that, bro, we another killing. An hour 45, a great stream, lots of times. And I appreciate you as always. You know what I just realized? I got a text about 3 minutes ago saying, hey, Gordo, you got a hockey game tomorrow at 2 p.m. What? Am I going to that? I got to figure out if maybe I ditched the game, bro, because it's a pretty good slate. But we'll see how it goes. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. Make sure to once again hit the like button, subscribe. Appreciate all the support once again, and let's make some money, guys. Cheers.